Dear Mr. Buffett and Mr. Munger, my name is Daphne. I'm from NYC, and this is my 5th annual shareholders meeting.
Well, we appreciate you coming. We do, sincerely.
As you know, for the past 4 consecutive months, we've been going through inflation, with an inflation rate north of 7% for the first time since 1982. You both have experienced this before, from 1970 to 1975, at a time where your portfolio took paper losses, and yet you made some of the best investment choices of your life. Reflecting on that, my question is, if you had to pick one stock to bet on,
You kind of snuck up on us there for a second.
and be resilient in the inflation, which would you choose? And what specifically enables that stock to do very well and might very likely be a difficult market?
Well, I'll tell you something even better than that one stock. Maybe we'll get to one stock, but the best thing you can do is to be exceptionally good at something. If you're the best doctor in town, if you're the best lawyer in town, if you're the best whatever it may be, no matter whether people are paying you with $1 zillion or paying you, they're going to give you some of what they produce in exchange for what you deliver. And if you've got it, and if you're the one they pick out to do any particular activity, sing or play baseball or be their lawyer, whatever it may be, whatever abilities you have can't be taken away from you. They can't actually be inflated away from you. Somebody else will give you some of the wheat they produce or the cotton or whatever it may be, and they will trade you for the skill you have. So the best investment by far is anything that develops yourself. And it's not taxed, so that's what I would do.
I got some advice for you too. When you have your own retirement account and your friendly advisor suggests you put all the money into Bitcoin, just say no.
Yeah. Nobody can take away from you the talent you have. I mean, and the truth is that the world will always be willing, they'll need to do something, and some people will not have skills, and they will get less of the product of the society than somebody who has other skills. And sometimes that has something to do with education, but a good bit of the time it doesn't have anything to do with education. I mean, but to figure out what you'd like to be, and figure out how, and what you'd like to be is what you're going to likely be good at. And the world will always need somebody on that tube to tell us what's going on. So, study Becky Quick or somebody and figure out, what makes her good, and what you sort of naturally bring to the game. I mean, I could have. Who's the guy that says you got to spend 10,000 hours doing this or that? And then Malcolm Gladwell, would say just spend 10,000 hours on something. Well, I could have spent 10,000 hours trying to become a heavyweight boxer, but I don't think I'd have felt very good at the end of the 10,000 hours. I mean, you stumble in to what you really like doing, what you're good at, what is useful to society, and then it doesn't make any difference whether the dollar bill, is now worth, in terms of the purchasing power, a cent or a half a cent or a hundredth of a cent. If you're the best doctor in town, they'll bring you chickens, whatever they may do, but can't take it away from you. And my guess is that if you've come to 5 meetings, you've got a very good future ahead of you. I mean, that shows it. It self-selects. I mean, if you want to sell a piece of yourself, we'll buy that as the best investment we can make. We'll take 10% of your future earnings, and we'll give you a cash payment now, and we'll have a terrific asset. And you can have 100% of your future earnings, and if you develop your talent, maybe you'll be a great dancer. People pay money to watch great dancers. We had Fred Astaire and his sister Adele that came from Omaha. Their name was Austerlitz then, but they could dance. And Adele did whatever she did with it, moved to England, and Fred Astaire went on to do a whole bunch of other things. And Ginger Rogers had to do it all the same backwards in high heels, and she didn't get paid as much because she was a woman. But you're going to do just fine. I bet a lot of money on you. Okay, Becky?
This question is for Warren and Ajit, and it comes from someone named Modi in Israel, who writes, "My family and I are long-term shareholders of Berkshire, and we plan to hold it forever. We like that the current management thinks in the long term to increase shareholder intrinsic value, but we aren't sure that at the time of the management change, the new management will act the same way you do. They might take risks in the insurance field where it's hard to find on the balance sheet, and that might take years to realize. We would like to know how we can assess the insurance risk today and in the future, or to know in time when you and Ajit are not here anymore."
Well, I would say that the future for a long time is about as assured as you can have in the world. We don't have an answer for the nuclear problem or anything, but we have a culture that A, has worked, B, has the shares and the shareholders that will carry it a long way. And the first year, let's say I die tomorrow, the first year, everybody says, what's going to happen? They're going to spend all, they're going to do all these things. You've got the shares held in a place that it can't happen. You've got a board of directors that understands that our culture is 99.9% of running the business. They don't think that having meetings of the committees and bringing in outside experts or anything like that mean a thing. I mean, it's a process that the world has adopted, and they've done it for reasons we understand. But Berkshire is just plain different. We are a business that exists for people that trust us. And all we have to do to fulfill that trust is fairly simple things. We've got the people to do it. We've got unbelievable resources to do it. And it isn't that difficult as long as you've got the freedom, essentially, to do it. And the world will write stories a year after, so a year later, what has happened at Berkshire. The railroad will be run the same way. The big worry, of course, is that somebody comes in and figures they can make billions as a group, or people that sell the businesses and say it's better to be private, because, or it's better to be pure this or something like that. Well, we're a pure partnership, is what we're pure at, and we do have what we think is a special relationship with our owners, and I don't think the relationship changes, and the ownership doesn't change that much. And the truth is, nobody can take us over for a long, long time. And by that point, we would hope that maybe the superiority of this culture might be somewhat better understood by the world, and we will be here. If we have the same culture, we'll be here 100 years from now, assuming we haven't had nuclear exchange or something. But Berkshire is built forever. There is no finish point. Nobody's waiting to retire or have their options vested or thinking about. We don't have anybody that's thinking about, should I take another job? It just doesn't. They're doing what they want to do in life. And it isn't because, we're topping somebody else's offer, or that headhunters come around and say, we want this person or that person, and what will it take to get them? Well, they can't get them. I mean, now, that's, I don't know whether we could build it again, but we've got it. And we didn't know we were building it exactly when we took over. When we had a lousy textile mill. I mean, it isn't like Charlie and I sat down. He didn't happen to be in Berkshire, but he was my partner and everything. And so we were mental partners. We didn't sit down and work out some plan that said, well, we'll run the dumb textile business for 20 years and then we'll finally have to fold it, or then we'll do this and that and everything. We just kept putting one foot in front of the other. But we did know how we felt about running a public company. And one thing we wanted to do always was we wanted to have people that were in sync with us. We didn't really want that group I saw in the Flamingo, in 1952. We wanted people who trusted us. And we started, in my case, in a partnership. We started with 7. Charlie started a partnership. And this is the same thing. We didn't go to institutions, and we didn't pay fees to people to bring in money or anything like that. We sat down with people. In my case, I handed them a little sheet of paper, and it said the ground rules. And I wanted to be sure we were on the same page. I said, you don't have to read the partnership agreement. I mean, there's no way in the world I would be taking advantage of it. You shouldn't be here if you think I'd take. But I do want you to be on the same page and measuring me by the same yardsticks I measure myself. And those people stayed with me. And they're still, they're their children, their children's children, they're shareholders of Berkshire, but they're partners. And it'd be hard to do that again, but I would do it with whatever. If I were going to be in this field, I would try and do the same thing. I would try to find people that trusted me. And I don't want to be with people that are saying, how'd you do versus the S&P, last month, or, what's your long short position, or anything like that. I sold securities for 3 years, and it just, I just didn't want to be in that position where essentially they thought maybe that I could do things that I couldn't do. So I finally found a way to get a few people. I mean, I didn't actually stumble into it, but a few people that trusted me, and they just gave me their money, and we've lived happily ever after. So it's the new management's got them. And the management after them, and the management after them, they're just, excuse me, they're just custodians of a culture that's embedded. The owners believe in it. People that work there believe in it. And we're not saying other things can't do better or anything of the sort. We're just saying this is what we've got. And we have got the directors, we've got the share ownership and all of that, and the size that essentially can ward off any attempts to change the culture. And it's silly to talk about if our board members did this and did that, and and in the end, obviously we're always going to follow the law, and we're a Delaware company. We follow Delaware law, but that doesn't mean that we have to do what every other Delaware corporation does and how they look at the Delaware statute. We'll follow the law, and then we'll run it as a group of people who trust us, and we appreciate that trust. Charlie?
Well, I remember when you had a textile mill,
God,
and
I tried to forget it.
the textiles are really just congealed electricity the way modern technology works. And the TVA rates were 60% lower than the rates in New England. It was an absolutely hopeless hand, and you had the sense to fold it. Hello?
25 years later.
Well, you didn't pour more money into it.
No, that's right.
And no, recognizing reality when it's really awful and taking appropriate action just involves often just the most elementary good sense. How in the hell can you run a textile mill in New England when your competitors are paying way lower power rates?
I'll tell you another problem with it, too. I mean, the fellow that I put in to run it was a really good guy. And I mean, he was 100% honest with me in every way. He was a decent human being, and he knew textiles. And if he'd been a jerk, it would have been a lot easier. I would have probably thought differently about it. But we just stumbled along for a while, and then, we got lucky that Jack Ringwald decided to sell his insurance company, and we did this and that. But I even bought a second textile company in New Hampshire. I mean, I don't know how many, 7 or 8 years later. I mean, I'm going to talk some about dumb decisions. Maybe after lunch we'll do it a little. And it is incredible how many dumb decisions we made. Charlie and I bought that, and Sandy got us, and we bought that department store. And that was 1966. And we were working with our own money. And why in the world did we think? And Charlie flew to Baltimore, and I mean, we used to really work in those days. There again, we had wonderful people. Lewis Cohen couldn't have been a better guy. But everybody in that business had a different reference point. They wanted to expand their company. Well, who can blame them for that? And they were planning a couple of new stores, and each department, the shoe department, said, well, we'll do it better this time, and all that kind of thing. But the whole idea was crazy. And we got there for a little while, and we figured it out, finally. And
we reversed course.
yeah. But why the hell did we do it in the first place?
Well, because we were stupid.
Yeah, okay, well, that's important to realize. We paid $6 a share for that stock. And if the department store has succeeded, it might be worth, $30 a share now. And it failed, but we did other things, and we merged it into Berkshire, and we'll talk about that a little later. And I don't know whether it's $150,000 a share now or something like that from the $6. So if it succeeded, we would have maybe made a few dollars, and because it failed, we made hundreds of thousands of dollars per share. But that's the way life is. You just keep going. And
keep learning, that's the secret.
Keep learning.
Keep learning.
Keep learning. And you can say, why would it take guys that long to learn? And, well, we got a few minutes before lunch. Let's address that problem, because I did bring something along on that. There have been, well, I started buying stocks when I was 11. I've been reading every book in the library on it. I loved it. My dad, it was his business, and I'd get to go down to his office and I'd read the books down there, and I saved the money, and finally, by the time I was 11, I could buy a stock, and I could tell you at that time, I went to New York Stock Exchange when I was 9. My dad took us to New York, each kid to New York once, and he took me. I went to the New York Stock Exchange, and I was in awe of it. I could tell you how the specialist system worked and the odd lot arrangements, and I could tell you history of finance and all of these things. And then I got very interested in technical analysis and charted stocks, and did all kinds of crazy things, hours and hours and hours. And saved money to buy other stocks and tried shorting and I just did everything. And then when I was either 19 or 20, and I can't remember exactly where I did it or something, I picked up a book someplace. It wasn't a textbook at school, but it was in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I looked at this book and I saw one paragraph and it told me I'd been doing everything wrong. I just had the whole approach wrong. I thought I was in the business of trying to pick stocks that would go up. And in one paragraph, I saw that was totally foolish, and I left. I brought something that it's really interesting. Let's put up. What do we call this chart? Don't think we. Oh, here we are. Yeah. Let's put up illusion 1. Done. Yeah, there we have it. Now if you look at that, some people will see two faces. Some people will see a base. And some people will look a long time and only see two faces. But the mind flips from one side to another. And there's some name for it that they call it ambiguous illusions or something of the sort. There's other things that talk about aha moments or in the old comic strips with Popeye, Wimpy would have a little balloon over his head and the light bulb would go on. There's this point where all of a sudden you see something you haven't seen. Well, it took me, I had an illusion that I was looking at, we'll say in that one, two phases. Let's go to the one labeled 2. And if you're looking at it from one side, it looks like a rabbit, and if you look the other way, it looks like you're looking at a duck. And the mind is a very funny place, and I think people call it an apperceptive mass when you have all kinds of things going on in your mind, and they go on for years, and they sit there and get lost, and then all of a sudden, you see something different than what you were seeing before. Now, it took me in stocks, which I was intensely interested in. I had a decent IQ, and I was reading and thinking, and it was important to me to make some money on it. I had every motivation in the world. And then I read a paragraph, actually, in chapter 8, I think it was, of The Intelligent Investor. And it told me that I wasn't looking at the duck, I was looking, now it was the rabbit, whatever it may be. And whether you call it a light bulb, whether you call it, a moment of truth, whatever it may be. And that happened to me in Lincoln. I mean, it changed my life. If I hadn't read that book, I don't know how long I would have gone on looking for head and shoulders formations and 200-day moving averages and the odd-lot ratios and a zillion things. And I love that kind of stuff, except it was the wrong stuff I was looking at. And I've had that happen, and Charlie's had it happen, I'm sure. It happens a few times in your life, and all of a sudden, you see something important that, why in the hell didn't I see this in the first place? Maybe it's a week ago, maybe it's a year ago, maybe it's 5 years ago, maybe it's learning how to get along with people. I mean, whether actually it's better to be, kind or not, or whether, they're just learning how to have, if you want the world to love you, what you have to do, or what, it's you know it when you see it, but you didn't see it for 10 years before. And I don't know whether Charlie's got some thoughts on that or not, but that's happened in a few situations in business where I've looked at a company for a decade, and then there's something that it just all gets rearranged in your mind, and you can say, well, why didn't I see this 5 years ago? But usually, I've had it happen a few times, obviously, and everybody here has, and just in different areas of their lives. And you think, how could I have been so stupid? Well, that's what Charlie's, when he was in the law practice, had a partner, Roy Tolles, and every smart guy that would get in trouble, usually it was guys, and usually it was with women, they'd come into the office and they'd look, down-faced and everything, and they'd say it seemed like a good idea at the time, I mean, and their lives unraveled, in many cases. So there is that apperceptive mass that's sitting in there inside somehow, and every now and then it produces some insight. It's better actually if it produces insight into your behavior than whether it produces insight to make money. I mean, and some people never get it, and they wonder why whether their kids hate them or whether there's nobody in the world that would give a damn whether they live or die. In fact, they prefer they die because then they've been courting them for their art collection or whatever it may be. It's just, Charlie would say, just write your obituary and reverse engineer it, and not a crazy idea. Charlie, I don't know, what do you know about apperceptive masses, which are optical illusions?
Well, I know that that's the way the brain works, and that it's easy to get it wrong. And part of the trick is to get so you correct your own mistakes. And we've done a lot of that.
Yeah.
Frequently, way too late.
Yeah, we've done better with the mistakes than we have with the reasonably good ideas.
Well, it's so easy to overdo a good idea. That's what's going on now. You have a lot of good ideas that are being grossly overdone.
Well, just tell me about one that hasn't been, but tell me later when the crowd isn't listening. That's where.
Well, look what happened to Robin Hood, from its peak to its trough. Wasn't that pretty obvious that something like that was going to happen?
Tell me again what it should have
Robin Hood, when it came out and it went public and
Oh.
got lured everybody in all the short-term gambling and big commissions and hidden kickbacks and so on and so on. It was disgusting.
Yeah. And it says so last year, and they got mad at you, and they sold a bunch of their stock, and they got the money, and
Yeah, but now it's unraveling.
Yeah.
God is getting just.
but a lot of the insiders have they've gotten a lot of money from it. I mean, they were big sellers, as I remember.
That may be, but
Yeah.
there's been some justice.
Well, I have to agree with that. Well, it's a good idea to go around making enemies of people, though. That's another question, which we do. Is it wise to criticize people at all?
Probably not, but I can't help it.
Well, and here's the smartest guy I know, and he's 98, and he hasn't figured it out yet. So, I mean, give up. Enjoy. Well, with that, we'll go to lunch, and we'll try to come back wiser at 1 o'clock. And thank you.